We are. Everybody is in.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Drought in Nevada workshop series. And to get started today, my name is Bunny Bishop, and I am the Water Planning and Drought Resiliency Section Chief at the Nevada Division of Water Resources. Before we get started, I first wanted to go over some logistics for today's webinar. The webinar today will be recorded and will be available later this week on the NIDIS YouTube channel. A link will be sent out in a follow-up email. All attendees are muted, and instead of using Slido this time, we are going to use the Zoom chat function for questions and comments. Also, if you would you please include your full name and affiliation in your Zoom name so we can learn who's joining us today. And to do that, it's up in the upper right-hand corner next to the mute with 3 dots. If you just click on that, you can rename yourself. As this workshop is co-hosted by the University of Nevada, Reno, we ask that you would please take a moment to fill out an optional anonymous short demographic poll linked in the chat. So now let's jump into today's webinar. Nevada's variable climate makes drought preparedness not only important, but challenging. To effectively address some of the challenges faced in the drought planning process, the Nevada Division of Water Resources is collaborating with the Desert Research Institute, the Nevada State Climate Office, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration through the National Integrated Drought Information System program to facilitate 3 virtual workshops aimed at improving drought planning, mitigation, and communication in Nevada. These workshops will encourage collaboration between stakeholder agencies at the federal, state, and community level to leverage resources and improve planning, mitigation, and outreach. Strengthening interagency collaboration will improve coordination of actions as well as minimize duplicate efforts, ultimately enhancing efficiencies and resources that benefit a diversity of water users across the state. By identifying needs for drought preparedness, stakeholder agencies can work together in determining the next steps needed to continue moving Nevada towards drought resiliency. Today's workshop will be a discussion of drought resources, funding, and projects. And before we get into today's agenda, I wanted to share with you a link in the chat to the Building a Better America guidebook. I know that a couple of the presenters will be mentioning the bipartisan infrastructure law signed in mid-November. This link is to a guidebook for state, local, tribal, and territorial governments and other partners. The infrastructure law allocated funding to over 350 distinct programs across more than a dozen federal departments and agencies. This guide contains different programs, contains information about these different programs and who to contact for more information. So now let's get back to the workshops. This 3rd workshop is a series of speakers from state and federal agencies sharing information about their programs and resources, including a variety of funding opportunities aimed at improving drought resiliency. After we're done with our first 3 speakers, and we've gone through that portion, the first half of our agenda, before we go to break, I will do a quick question and answer session, and I will introduce each speaker before they start. And so to kick us off this morning, our first speaker is Raydson. Raydson is the state conservationist with the Nevada U.S. Department of Agriculture Natural Resources Conservation Service. And let me quit sharing my screen. Maybe. Well, hold on a moment. I'm having technical difficulties. I cannot figure out how to stop sharing. There we go. Okay, Ray, I think you can take control and share your screen now. Perfect.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Raydson. I want to come on and let you guys put a face with a voice, and I will turn off my camera until the end so that we can kind of focus on a presentation at hand. And I want to start off by, again, saying thank you to Bunny and everyone else for affording us this opportunity to discuss what we have to offer within the state to assist with drought. And I also want to preface this presentation with one little disclaimer that this is a great opportunity to spread the word about what we have to offer, but there are nuances with the programs and also nuances with you and your operation that we really need to understand so that we can make these programs work to be a benefit for everyone. So this will be a foundational presentation. And you will see contact information to reach out to us so that we can have more in-depth dialogue to understand exactly how we can help you or point you in the direction of other resources that may be within USDA that we don't have responsibility for. So with that, I will get started here. I'm trying to wait for it to advance, folks. And it does not want to advance for me.
Well, we had it working earlier. What was, there we go. I was gonna say.
All right.
Perfect.
So today we will go over where our offices are. We'll go over the foundational programs, and then we'll also talk about PO 566, our Watershed and Flood Prevention Operations Program as well. First off, NRCS points of contacts. So as you can kind of see on the screen, we have offices here in Elko, Ely, Las Vegas. The Caliente field office isn't necessarily open right now. Minden, Yerington, Fallon, Lovelock, and Winnemucca. We also have a state office here in Reno as well. And these are all places where anyone in the state can make contact with us. This list shows you the name of all of our district conservationists so that you can reach out to them depending on where you are in the state to have that dialogue that we were talking about earlier on. And so I'll leave that up there a little longer, but Bunny is also going to make this presentation available to you all so you will be able to make contact with these individuals as needed. So some ways that NRCS can assist customers. We have CTA, Conservation Technical Assistance. This is a flagship for us. And this is where we kind of start out the relationship with our new producers. And we're talking about farmers, ranchers, people who are producing agricultural commodities, correct? And so we start that dialogue by coming to your operation, walking your ground with you, getting an idea of who you are, what kind of operation you have, what some of the issues you're seeing out there. And then we will discover issues as well. And then we come up with a conservation plan to start figuring out how we're going to go about addressing those issues and concerns that you may have. And this is all led by you. It's critical to know that NRCS is voluntary. There's only one part of our operation that's regulatory, and that would be dealing with highly erodible and wetlands. But outside of that, everything else is in the control of the producer to determine how quickly or how slowly we move forward with assisting them. And I think that's one of the great advantages. The second program is AMA, the Agricultural Management Assistance Program. This helps producers manage risk through diversification, marketing, natural resource conservation practices as well. This program has mostly been used in the state for seasonal high tunnels, for some of our smaller producers who are doing an excellent job, and that market is growing every day in Nevada. And so they have used this program to assist them. We get seasonal high tunnels or hoop houses that they can start to grow out crops in. And it kind of helps from climate change. It helps lengthen out the growing season, and it provides some opportunities for us. As you can see at the very bottom, we did just under 400,000 in that program last year. And so there are resources there, and it's being utilized throughout the state. That's an excellent opportunity. CSP, our Conservation Stewardship Program. It is the largest program in terms of acres in our CS. We kind of look at this as kind of our top level program. So most people come through the door if they're small. They start out with AMA, which is the last program we just went over. We'll talk about EQIP and the different phases of it here in the future. But once you go through those programs, you can come up to the stewardship program. And this program actually rewards producers who are doing a great job of addressing all resource concerns within their property, and then trying to find ways to do enhancements to even elevate that even more. But at the baseline, they've addressed almost all the issues on their property, and this program is there to assist them to move forward. I think it's important to note that you see down there is 546,000 that was delivered last year. 5 years ago, the program was almost non-existent in the state. Last year, we had over $1 million worth of applications. And so in a small amount of time, we're obligating almost all the dollars that come through the door. And there's a huge demand for even more of those dollars. Excellent program, though. Agriculture Conservation Easements Program. This is a very, very big program in Nevada. We haven't had many applications in the past few years, but we have quite a few acres that are in perpetual easements, and we're protecting them from urban sprawl and development as well. This is an excellent opportunity if you're looking to, if you own property and you're looking to make sure that that property stays the way it is right now and it isn't converted or sold for development purposes. It's an excellent opportunity. And there's a bunch of wildlife benefits, water saving benefits associated with using this program as well too. And the payouts are extremely high because there's not a whole lot of private ground in Nevada. Water rights are something that's super important. And so we have to have those water rights along with the land, but excellent opportunity there as well too. EQIP, this is probably a program that most of you have heard of before if you've heard of NRCS. It's our Environmental Quality Incentives Program. It's the oldest program that NRCS has since we started doing contracts. This is where we get the lion's share of the dollars. If you look at the last bullet, you see $7.8 million is what was spent last year with this program. This program definitely is the place where you can find resources to assist with drought. We'll go over some of those practices that you can utilize through this program further on in the presentation. But after we do CTA, where we go out, sit down and talk with you, most of our producers, for the most part, enter into this program to try to address those concerns. And if you look under the benefits there, improving air, soil and water quality, conserving water, preventing soil erosion, enhancing wildlife habitat, and mitigating impacts to climate change. This is the program that is most utilized in Nevada by far, and has the most amount of opportunity for anyone who may be interested. Another program that has been extremely beneficial in Nevada as well is our Regional Conservation Partnership Program. This program is different from every other program that we have based off the fact that it leverages outside dollars with NRCS or government dollars. So there's skin in the game on both sides to try to target an area and target resource concerns. Where we've seen the most amount of utilization of this program has actually been with tribes. So it's with Duck Valley Tribe. I always kind of get them mixed up with Duck Water, but Duck Valley, we've upgraded a section of their irrigation system for the tribe using this program. And it's very, very valuable. We've had plenty of people try to get into this program. It's very, very competitive because it's on a national level that it's being competed with. But as an agency, $330 million have been invested thus far in this program. So an excellent opportunity. Reach out to us if you want to learn more about RCPP. EL 566 or Watershed and Flood Prevention Operations. We're starting to see this program being used a lot more in Nevada as well. This program is super beneficial for watershed protection, assisting with water quality management, municipal and industrial water supply, and agricultural water management. And there are several different parts to this program, but if there's any type of impacts from floods, fire, drought, or any of those other things, and these things kind of run together, right? We can have a wildfire somewhere, then we get a really, really wet event that happens in that area, and we can have real bad erosion. That erosion and flooding can then impact property and life. And this program has an opportunity to come in and assist with that. And we're starting to see it being used in the state. You have to have a sponsor for this program. And typically it's state government, counties, conservation districts, and others who step up to that role. But if there's an opportunity to learn more about that, please do reach out to us. You can see our state engineer, Jose Rosado. He is the lead POC for this program, and he will definitely welcome any dialogue that comes from what you've heard thus far. NRCS programs and environmental hazards. So drought mitigation practices. Earlier, I was saying we would talk about the practices that might be able to assist. Cover crops. Through EQIP, you can sign up for assistance using cover crops. And the goal of those practices are to keep cover on the ground to help the ground stay cooler, help retain moisture that's in the ground, and lessen the impacts of drought. Residue and tillage management practices in places where folks are turning over the ground to conventionally plant a crop. We like to use tillage management practices to assist again with keeping residue there and also helping with soil moisture. Prescribed grazing is another practice that we have. Irrigation water management, looking at any of our ag land irrigators and helping them understand the root zone and utilizing that water to best irrigate within the root zone of the crop. We do a lot with putting in new structures and pipelines, even on federal lands. We have to stay within the footprint of existing practices, but we can update trawls, old pipelines, and structures that are past their lifespan and are in need of upgrades. We assist with wells, spring developments, and water trawls as well too. So for some of our ranchers out there who are needing to use trawls or spring developments to help spread out the animals and manage them a little bit easier, there are opportunities associated with that. Because if we can spread them out and lessen the pressure, then we can have more plants growing longer and try to help lessen the impacts of drought. So That is the end of my presentation. It was short and sweet for the 15 minutes, but what we really want you to take away is that if there are any questions or any time that you want to reach out to NRCS, please do so, because we definitely want to assist you. We want to make sure that we understand what your needs are and how we can help you. And if we can't, try to point you in the direction of someone who may be able to better assist. And with that, I will turn it back over to Ms. Bunny, and I'll take any questions or feedback that you guys have for me at this point.
Oh, Ray, we're gonna, if you could hang on until we have our next two presenters, we're gonna do a question and answer session before break when the next two are done, okay?
All right.
And so that reminds me, if you have a question for Ray or any of the other presenters, please put it in the chat and we will go through those questions before break. Let's see, next, and thank you, Ray, that was an excellent presentation, lots of great information in there for drought, addressing drought issues. All right, and next, our next speaker was scheduled to be Daniel Rebicki. He is the Executive Officer, Acting State Executive Director for the Nevada Farm Service Agency. However, Mr. Rebicki was called away to another meeting and will not be able to present today. And in his stead, we have Marilyn Jones presenting today. And Marilyn, if you'd like to try to share your screen while I'm introducing you, that would be great. Marilyn Jones is an agricultural program specialist with the U.S. Department of Agriculture in the Nevada State Office of the Farm Service Agency. And you have
okay.
Control, perfect. Looks
Thank
great.
you. Thank you, Bonnie. In addition to myself, Kayla Jackson is also on the call. She's also a program specialist with myself here at the Nevada Farm Service Agency State Office, and she'll be available during the allotted time for the questions and answers. So I just was going to go through a few of the programs that we have available right now through the Farm Service Agency that are specific to drought assistance. We'll go through these in more detail, but we have ECP, EFRP, LFP, ELAP, and NAP. We have a lot of acronyms, and we'll kind of discuss how the U.S. Drought Monitor affects those programs as well. The ECP program, which is Emergency Conservation Program in relation to drought, but it's also available for other emergency disasters. It provides water conservation and enhancement measures. So we do allow we permit grazing on range, pasture, foraged by the livestock, supply emergency water for existing irrigation systems, serving orchards and vineyards. And we can also, in drought related assistance, we can also help with spring development and other operations out on BLM type federal property. We also provide emergency water for confined livestock operations. We do call it an emergency program, but it's not always administered in an emergency way because the project can't be started until we approve the application and we do an environmental review. We also have to request implementation of the program. So there's a few steps that have to happen before we can go forward with actually implementing the conservation practices. The payment limitation with the new farm bill was recently increased to $500,000 per person. And the cost share is 75% up to $500,000 or 90% for SDA, which is socially disadvantaged. Some of the components that we cover for drought are critical area planting, pipelines, pumps, spring development, wells. So you have to have a drought related problem and it runs off of our drought monitor. And then we can use the approved practices to deal with drought related problems. So right now we do have almost all of our counties in Nevada approved for the program, in addition to 3 counties that we administer for California. The EFRP program is the Emergency Forest Restoration Program to aid owners in the non-industrial private forest land. So you have to be a non-industrial private forest land person in order to qualify. And the land must be physically located in the county affected by the natural disaster. It must have had a tree cover, and that the damage, if not treated, would impair natural resources or affect future use of the private forest land. And the damage must be to the extent that it's needed to return the land to productive use by using federal assistance. We also have this program in place right now for some of our, one or two of our Nevada counties and California with those nasty fires we had last year. We're actually implementing this program for the first time to assist those private forest owners. Again, although we call it an emergency program, it's the similar situation where we cannot start the project until the application is approved, which is after the sign-up periods and the environmental review is completed. We also normally do field visits, which we were allowed to waive those because it was too dangerous for employees to go out there with the severity of the fires this year. The payment limitation also is up to $500,000 per person, and we cost share up to 75%. With this program, the applicant has up to 2 years to complete the work. Practices that we allow under the forest restoration program are things like debris removal, temporary cover, tree establishment, fencing if we need to protect new trees from wildlife, and seeding of fire breaks and fire lanes. However, we do not cover engineering or consulting fees, transportation costs, loss of revenue, or items associated with different technical codes. This livestock forage program is another disaster related program that depends upon the Drought Monitor. It provides payment to eligible livestock owners and contract growers of livestock who have eligible grazing animals that are physically located in a county that has a qualifying drought. They also have to be producers of grazed forage crop. Generally, that's native and improved pasture land. Or they can have a lease for grazing ground. And the livestock have to have been owned, leased, or purchased during the 60 days prior to the beginning date of the qualifying drought. And they have to be maintained for commercial use. So if they're for private use, we cannot cover those type of animals. The drought severity is based on the U.S. Drought Monitor. So we're already looking at some counties right now that are in D2 to D4. And depending on the length of time that it's in the severity, the specific drought, you'll be qualified for a certain number of monthly payments up to 5 months of feed payment with a payment limitation of $125,000, regardless of how many counties you participate in. We do have a lot of producers that have multi-county operations, some go into multi-state, and we all work together to make sure that we are only paying the producer that maximum of 5 months. So currently, we aren't taking applications, although we are in drought severity of D2 to D4 in some of our counties. D2, you have to be in that severity for at least 8 weeks to qualify for the program. But with livestock forage, we depend upon the corn price for the prior year to set the price per head. So that's generally not done until April or May. And then they open up the program, which is retroactive if we have any droughts based on the U.S. Drought Monitor that would qualify for the 2022 program year. And looking at the Drought Monitor so far, it looks like we're still going to have the LFP program, which we've had now for the last couple of years due to the drought. In addition, this program is subject to average adjusted gross income provisions where you cannot exceed $900,000. ELAP, which is our Emergency Livestock Assistance Program, is assisting producers with additional costs of transporting water. There are other components to ELAP as far as if we have other disasters like hay, if you have a haystack that burns up, we can help replace feed. If you have a fire on private grazing ground, we can help with that. Right now, the big thing that we've been working on is this either water transportation or transporting feed, which is a new addition to the program. So if you have a situation where you're hauling water to grazing ground with your eligible livestock, and you don't normally require under either your BLM permit or private area that you don't normally transport water to, then we can help you with paying up to 150 days worth of water transportation. The cattle have to be owned, leased, or purchased at least 60 days prior to the beginning date of the qualifying drought. And you have to be at least D3 or higher on the US Drought Monitor for water transportation. And then the one tricky thing that a lot of producers don't think to do is to call and provide us with a notice of loss to let them know within 30 days that they're hauling the water. And we do have until the 30 days after the end of the calendar year to get these applications done. Same with LFP. We have until January 30th of 2023 to complete these applications for this year. You also, similar to LFP, you still have to be a commercial operation. You have to be capable of hauling the water with an eligible drought severity. You are subject to adjusted gross income provisions of 900,000, and we reimburse 75% up to a maximum of 150 calendar days, or a maximum payment limitation of 125,000. However, if you're socially disadvantaged, limited resource, beginning or veteran farmer, we will increase the cost share amount to 90% of the calculated payment rate, subject to the same payment limitation. In addition to water transportation, with the pandemic and this drought severity, they've added feed transportation costs. So if you have to haul feed to your eligible livestock on grazing ground before you're able to bring them back home, a lot of people are hauling feed to their animals out on their federal BLM or Forest Service permits or private grazing areas. The county has to be in D2 for 8 consecutive weeks or D3 or greater for any period of time. So if we go into D3, which some of our counties are right now, they're eligible for this program, even if we do maybe get some good spring rains that back off the monitor. It doesn't matter. Anytime you just go into D3 for even a day, it opens up the program for eligibility. Ranchers will be reimbursed 60% of the feed transportation costs above what they would have normally incurred. Some producers and livestock owners already have to haul feed to their animals, so we do take that into account. And we do offer the 90% cost share for SDA, again, limited resource, beginning or federal or veteran farmer rancher. The livestock have to be in an area that's intended for grazing and held for commercial use. And they have to have costs incurred on or after January 1. And again, we have till January 31st of 2023. So we have this entire year to administer this program. The Drought Monitor does, like I said, determine a lot of the programs that we have availability for. The Drought Monitor is a partnership between the National Drought Mitigation Center at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, the USDA, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. So each week, these maps are updated every Thursday, and we use the Drought Monitor to trigger disaster declarations and program eligibility. So we often get secretarial designations that open up different programs and loans for emergency loans for borrowers as well. And there's a FSA eligibility tool available to look up what counties are eligible for LFP, which is one of the more popular programs that we have, the Livestock Forage program. This map that I have here is from the end of January, but it hasn't changed. So you can see most of our counties have at least some D2, and as long as we stay in D2 for 8 weeks, it'll open up the program eligibility. And then we already have programs in, or excuse me, counties in D3 or D4 at this time. So the 5 classifications that we use, our programs are dependent on D2, 3, and 4. So if you're in D1, it still is considered moderate drought. However, it's not going to trigger any programs. We also like to tell people they can get involved and become contributors. They can submit observations of local conditions to the drought impact reporter, and they can also become a COCO-RAS observer and begin submitting precipitation reports through COCO-RAS. Another program that we have available all the time, regardless of drought, but is affected by drought, is our non-insured crop disaster assistance program, which is NAP. This is like an insurance program that provides financial assistance to producers of non-insurable crops with RMA to protect against natural disasters that result in lower yields or crop losses or prevents crop planting. So eligible crops have to be for commercially produced agricultural commodities such as crops for food, planted and grown for livestock consumption, like grain and forage crops, including native forage. You have to be an eligible producer or a tenant who share in the risk of producing the eligible crop, and you have to have purchased your coverage prior to the year of disaster. So we have deadlines all throughout the year for different crops, and you have to purchase it prior to the crop year. We do have different coverage levels and a buy-up option. So you can go from having 50% coverage up to 65% with a premium. Depending upon acres planted, you will have a buy-up premium. That's for crops for forage, and then for grazing loss, we only have a catastrophic level of 50, 55. And then for socially disadvantaged, limited resource, beginning or veteran farmer, we waive the service fee, which is $325 per crop. And we also provide a 50% reduction in the premium payment. This program is also subject to the adjusted gross income provisions and cannot exceed 900,000. Let me go back. I would say that in Nevada, we mostly have producers that cover grasses, either native grasses or improved pasture grasses. We do have a lot of grains and some corn and a few vegetables. And we just recently acquired Clark County back under the Nevada fold. So we're finding new and different crops that are covered under NAP. So we have a variety of different types of crops and coverage availability for that. And once you have a drought issue and it affects your crop, we have loss adjusters that go out and will determine the damage and the conditions and determine if they're based on how much hay that producer was able to put up, whether or not we're able to provide them any financial assistance. I always like to point out farmers.gov. There's been a lot of effort put into this website to locate service centers. You can look up program information, loan information. You can use the disaster assistance discovery tool to find out programs that might be applicable. It's very easy to use, and it asks you if you have suffered losses as a result of a natural disaster. They ask you when the disaster occurred, and it'll lead you down a path to what programs may work for you. And then at the end, you can locate the service center that's applicable to your county that you're suffering from the disaster in, whether it's drought that we're discussing mainly today, or could be a flood or other issues like insect infestation, etc. There's also USDA.gov, FSA.USDA.gov, or farmers.gov. I find farmers.gov to be a little more user-friendly, but you can also find fact sheets and general information on programs, eligibility, deadlines, and then, like I say, it'll lead you to your appropriate service center so that they can assist you with signing up for some of these programs. The other option we have is a Gov Delivery. We send out 2 to 3 bulletins a month. It's not too excessive. And then we send out one from our state office with a summary of what program updates or information that's specific to your area. So each of our county offices send out updates that are specific to their counties that they govern. And then we'll send out things from our state office to keep all our subscribers up to date with program deadlines and availability. Like I said, Kayla and I will be available after the next presenter for any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Marilyn. That was a lot of great information. And I know some of the programs are relatively new, so lots of good resources in there. And like Marilyn said, if you would put questions for Marilyn or Ray in the chat, and we will do that question and answer session for our first 3 presenters after our next speaker. And our next speaker is Kevin Clancy. Kevin Clancy is the Native American Affairs Program Manager for the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. Kevin has been with Reclamation for 15 plus years. Prior to his appointment to his current position, he also worked in the Water Conservation Program and Wildlife Refuge Water Supply Program. Welcome, Kevin, and would you like to share your screen, please?
Of course, Bunny, thank you for that introduction. Sharing now.
Sometimes there's a little lag, so.
Yeah. Let's see. Here we go.
There we go.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you again. And I'd also like to thank the Nevada Division of Water Resources for putting on this drought series. Today, again, my name is Kevin Clancy. I'm the Native American Affairs Program Manager for the California Great Basin region. Today, I'm going to talk about, since I am the Native American Affairs Program Manager, some programs that are specific to tribes. And then I'm going to go into the bipartisan infrastructure bill and water smart programs. Those programs are available to tribes and also to all other entities with water delivery authority. So here's an overview of reclamation. Again, we're in the California Great Basin area. There's 5 regions that make up reclamation, 17 Western states. In the California Great Basin region, we have most of Nevada is in our region, as is just a little bit of Southern Oregon, and also California down to about Bakersfield, Santa Barbara. In our region, we have about 93 to 98 tribes. The reason there's not a specific number of tribes is once we had this redistricting of our regions, some tribes kind of crossed over regions, and we decided amongst our regions to continue to work with those tribes that we had relationships with prior to redistricting. Our first program, or kind of our flagship program for the tribes, is our Native American Affairs Technical Assistance Program. This program basically follows the Reclamation's mission to manage, develop, protect water and its related resources. So this program is about, you can just do about any sort of project within this program, including drought. In fact, most of our projects these days are drought projects. Depending on the year, funding can be available $200,000 to $500,000. There is no cost share. What we've been seeing lately in the last couple of years is increased funding. So we're at that $500,000 level for most projects right now. We still haven't received our go-ahead to put this, pardon me, put this program on grants.gov yet. It will be announced eventually. We're in the continuing resolution. So sometime after mid-February here, we're expecting maybe March, April, we'll see this on grants.gov. What I would like to say is on grants.gov, I'd encourage all of you to register on grants.gov, and you can put in keywords like water, drought, anything like that. And then when opportunities on grants.gov come up, you'll get an email notifying you of that opportunity. You can go into grants.gov at that time and see if that program is appropriate for a project that you wish to propose. We also have another Native American Affairs Technical Assistance Program. We call it a ROPO, and I think that's for regional funding opportunities. So this program is the same program as the one that goes through grants.gov. However, this is a little softer, is that the funding through this program is awarded equally amongst all regions. The program through grants.gov is competitive throughout all regions of reclamation. Again, same funding limitations, and how we make this program notified to the tribes, this is tribal only, of course, is we send a letter to the chair people notifying them of the opportunity. So it's a little bit different way to find out about the program, but this program came about because some regions, particularly the California Great Basin region, competes very well in national programs. In fact, we receive a lot of the lion's share of awards. And this is a kind of a way to kind of equal the playing field amongst all regions. Here's some technical assistance project examples. And I'll let you read through those. These are through some of the tribes in Nevada. But right now we're doing a lot of groundwater wells, either for drinking water, for groundwater monitoring, for fire suppression. A lot of fire suppression right now. Just doesn't make any sense to use treated water to fight fires. And also we're seeing a lot of livestock wells so that we can keep some of the cattle out of the riparian environment. We do a lot of storage projects and also a lot of water treatment projects. Special funding opportunities. I call this the magic money. This is a manna money, money that falls from the sky, usually around the end of a fiscal year. Difference on this program here is that there are no thresholds. So you can have awards up to $1 million or more. Can't count on this money coming around year after year. Proposals are sent directly to me. And I'll know what the Dear Tribal letters will go out about these opportunities. And again, these projects that are eligible for this the special funding opportunity are all those that support Reclamation's mission. Just about anything to do with water, we can find a way to fund. There is currently a special funding opportunity right now available. We call it the 2022 Drought Mitigations. Letters have been sent to the chair people. And also these are due April 15th. The maximum award amount is $500,000. And here are the objectives. But if you have a project and you don't think it fits in one of these objectives, there's a lot of gray area here too. So you can reach out to me and I can help you draft that proposal so that it does fit one of these objectives. Because like I said, there is some gray area in the drought. And you can get just about anything into a drought proposal. A lot of you have probably heard about this bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's a giant, enormous animal. I'm just talking about Reclamation's portion, $8.3 billion. We're going to implement that over a 5-year period, about $1.7 billion a year. Here's a list of our spend plan right now and the dollars that are available. If you want any more information on this, you can go to that website here and get a lot more information. What I did try to do is pull together a chart. I created this chart here to kind of talk about some of these opportunities, how the money is going to be distributed or awarded in the announcements dates. So you can kind of keep an eye open on a specific program that you might be interested in and when that program will become open. A lot of these programs are going to go through the Water Smart program, and it's our biggest program that we have reclamation wide. It's open to tribes and also to other water entities. So it's an easy avenue to push a lot of this money through the bipartisan infrastructure bill funding. Water Smart program is our largest program that we have in reclamation right now. I remember when I first started out, this was called Water for America and Water 2025. It had various names throughout its history, and we landed on Water Smart program. But initially, it's just the water and energy efficiency, kind of the water conservation program. Now this is morphed into like almost 24 different kind of water-related programs. This is a list of some of the more popular programs. And for the tribes, I try to steer the tribes into the drought programs because they compete a lot better in these drought programs than they do against some of the larger water districts, and for example, in the water and energy efficiency. Those grades on those proposals are all based on water savings, and it's hard for tribes to compete with water savings from a big entity. A large water district. It just doesn't really happen. So they don't compete very well there, but they do compete very well in the drought programs. And I also listed the website here for Water Smart to get some more information. And I also try to put together another little table for the Water Smart program, again, with the amount of funding that's available and anticipated announcement dates. And these are all on grants.gov. All the Water Smart program has a cost share element, 50%, which is different than our tribal specific programs or special funding opportunities for tribes, and those don't have any cost share associated with them. And then some of you are probably realizing, like I am, that our funding only goes so far, and partnering with other agencies can help fund a specific project. And it seems like all projects nowadays have an extra zero at the end of them. So partnering with other agencies to get these projects done is becoming more and more important. And I'm planning that out right now. I've done some projects with Ray's group, with the NRCS, with the Hood River Tribe. We do have a program with the NRCS where reclamation will go in and do the district level improvements, maybe pressurize the system, and then NRCS will come back behind us with their equipment program and work with the individual growers. I'm also doing a lot of work right now with IHS. They have a lot of money. In fact, they have a ton of money this year and next year, more money than they've ever had. So I'm looking forward to doing more partnerships with them and other agencies to help get some good things done with tribes. And that's the end of my presentation. I think Bunny said that we'll be taking questions here shortly. So if anybody has any questions, I'd love to hear from you. And thank you for the opportunity to present today.
Thank you, Kevin. Lots of good information in there too. I just want to thank all of our speakers that have given presentations so far. Ray, Marilyn, and Kevin, lots of good information, and we will be sharing these presentations as well as this webinar is being recorded. So if you have follow-up questions, they've all invited you to follow up with them. But at this time, I would like to circle back around. If you have questions for anyone at this time, please put it in the chat, and we will ask our speakers to come back and answer questions. And I do see that we have a question for Ray. I believe the first one is, which of the listed drought practices seem to be most effective for crop management? And then it goes on, what practices are most utilized?
So, Bunny, could you read that again for me to make sure I picked it up?
Sure. Which of the listed drought practices seem to be most effective for crop management? And then what practices are the most utilized?
So that's a broad question that I can't answer specifically because so much of what we do is site specific. But I will say that across the board in Nevada, if we go back and look at the program dollars on an annual basis and look at the practices that they're going to, they're all water related practices, right? So we're talking about center pivots, land leveling, putting in structures within irrigation ditches, irrigation gates, things of that nature. They seem to take up the lion's share of the funding. And as we work with our conservation districts to set those local priorities, water quantity is normally the number one topic that they're looking at. And so all of those practices are having a benefit when they're used appropriately for being more efficient with water utilization.
Okay.
And if that didn't answer the question well enough, if they can come back, we can definitely try to make sure that we get the answer that they're looking for.
Okay. And then I'm looking at the chat. Let's see. Chris Moreno, who is Nevada Department of Agriculture, asks you, Ray, I think you already replied to this too, but will NRCS be administrating the newly announced USDA Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities program? And I see that you replied with a link, but did you want to expand on that a little bit or say anything else?
Well, yes, I think it's a great opportunity. It's over $1 billion is being put up with that. That program is holistically being ran from national headquarters, and we don't have a whole lot of input in on it at this point in time, and that could change. I'm sure as they start looking at some of those proposals, they will reach out to us. But it is a program with a lot of funding, and the funding pools are set up in such a way that no matter whether you're big or small, you have an opportunity to compete within appropriate fund pool. And it's trying to tackle 3 different areas, right? And I'll read this right from the link that you guys have, but implement climate smart production practices, activities, and systems on working lands, measure and quantify, monitor and verify carbon and greenhouse gas benefits associated with those practices, and develop markets and promote the resulting climate smart commodities. So it's a great opportunity. It's a new opportunity. It kind of falls in that vein of RCPP. And we hope that you guys are interested, and reach out to me if you guys want to know more about that opportunity. You'll see links in there for past workshops that they've had too, talking about the process for applying.
Thank you, Ray.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question here for Kevin. The question is, are there funding opportunities for students that you are aware of?
We have been talking about funding for Native students to participate in some water conservation type programs. It's still in infancy right now, but we thought there might be some implementation of a student program through some of our Cal Poly partners to work with to learn irrigation systems, water management, all the different tools that are available. Right now, there hasn't been an announcement of when that's going to come through, but it looks like it's supposed to be sometime in our fiscal 2022 year here. And then hopefully that'll be funded in subsequent years as well. Hopefully it's not just going to be a one-off program.
Thank you, Kevin. And now I have a question here for all 3 speakers. What are the largest barriers you see for participation in your programs?
I'll go first, unless Marilyn or Kevin, you guys want to go.
Go ahead, Ray.
All right. So for NRCS, I would say that I think the barrier that's on us is to break down these programs in bite-sized pieces so that the public can understand them and where they fit into that. And that's an ongoing challenge for us. I think that the process and some of the feedback that I've heard, right, is that the process is cumbersome. There's a lot of paperwork. And then our programs are voluntary and extremely competitive. And so even some of the folks who are newer and they sign up 2 or 3 times and they don't get in, you know, it just kind of get defeated by those denials, and they kind of walk away and throw their hands up. And just a need to just stay persistent and continue to work the programs and know that you will get in over time if you stay after it. So I think those are some ongoing barriers associated with it. And then a huge problem is all our programs are overprescribed, right? I used the example in my presentation of CSP. We put in $500 and some thousand, but I think we had over $1 million in applications last year. So that kind of gives you that balance of where that frustration can come along at. So I would put those out there as being the biggest barriers.
I'll go next.
I can jump in.
Okay, go, please.
For Farm Service Agency, I think our largest barrier in the 10 years that I've worked here is getting the program information out there. And for producers and ranchers, whether they're farmers or ranchers, to have the information for the programs that apply to them. I think the farmers.gov platform has really brought a lot of information directly to producers, but it is still difficult because unless you sign up for our bulletins, you're not really getting direct information from us. So it is a barrier for outreach. We do our best. It's been a bit of a challenge these last 2 years with COVID and having the inability to hold in-person, outreach meetings, for different areas of the state that have different programs going on. In Nevada, fortunately, we do have a good relationship with NRCS, and all of our offices in our state work really well together because we're a sister agency that does a lot of the eligibility paperwork for NRCS programs. And so our offices work together to kind of promote each other's programs, because some of the programs that we have might fit in for somebody, whereas NRCS program might be better. So we try to help put people back and forth between us and NRCS to get the right program that works for them. And then the other problem we have is the emergency conservation program and the emergency forest restoration. They say emergency, but the way we administer the programs isn't really in an emergency way. So, a lot of the cost is up front for the producers, and it creates a lot of frustration for people because it can drag on and on. And those are probably the main barriers I see. But with this pandemic that we've had so many new programs that have brought a lot of producers out of the woodwork that we never had seen prior to that. So it has actually increased our participation. And we just want to try, as soon as we're able to get back out there, have some more outreach meetings in person and platforms like this where we can get the information out.
Up here. So our main barrier for reclamation programs is our cost sharing. 50% cost share really excludes a lot of smaller districts and definitely most of the tribal participation in water smart programs. So as a result of those barriers, financial barriers, especially for tribes, that's why the technical assistance program came into existence. All the technical assistance dollars are without cost share. And the same with the special funding opportunities, they don't have cost share. But now what we're seeing is that these non-cost share programs are becoming very popular. And like what Ray alluded to earlier, there's a greater number of applicants than there are dollars. So a lot of things, what's coming down to right now is who's writing the best proposals. And one of the things I do on my outreach is I let tribes know that I'm available here to assist them with drafting their proposals. And I've sat on, I don't know how many number of review committees for water smart programs and some specific programs within our region. So I have a pretty good understanding of what a proposal should look like. And I try to help the tribes draft the best proposal as possible so that they have an opportunity to compete as high as they can. Also, we're seeing a shift in projects. We're looking for more on the ground kind of projects. We used to do a lot of studies, and studies wouldn't be anything. So now we're looking for on the ground implementation kind of projects. If there is a study, it has to lead to something. So if you're going to do a study, you can't just do like a water quality study because you've been studying your water quality for the last 20 years. You're not really doing anything with that information. You need to tailor your study that's going to lead to a project in the end. So that's something that we're seeing a shift in projects there as well. But the cost share hurdle is probably the biggest hurdle, not just for tribes, but also for a lot of smaller water districts. And we don't have any waivers yet, which is a big sore spot with a lot of people, since other agencies do have disadvantaged community waivers and those kind of considerations that they take into effect. But right now, we don't do that.
Thank you, all three of you. I do have another question for you all, and we got enough time, so I think one more. This is from Tamara. Given the context of warming temperatures and changes to precipitation patterns, where do you see opportunities for projects and innovation in Nevada and Eastern California? If any of you would like to.
I can jump in. I think what we're going to see is some of these programs that we used to administer every few years, you know, depending on the severity of drought, are going to become a normal every year program. And we've been working with our national office to kind of campaign for the Western states, because some of our programs aren't administered in a way that work for perpetual drought situations. And I know that they're working on other programs, but I would see, you know, I think there's going to be more opportunities for better programs that are more suitable to our needs out here in the West, instead of just using these emergency programs in a, you know, more regular way, because they don't really work that way for an every year type of program. So that's what I would say we're looking at.
What we're seeing in our agency is a shift towards drought resiliency kind of projects that add additional water supply where somebody may not have had it before, either through storage or using water differently, like for fire suppression, not using treated water for that. We also are working with water districts to encourage conservation at the local level. At the home level, a lot of that low-hanging fruit with toilets and shower heads and that kind of stuff and drip, those apples have been picked. So we're trying to come up with innovative ideas. We do have programs that competitions actually where people can submit ideas for drought resiliency kind of ideas in technical innovations. And we're seeing some pretty unique projects or ideas come out of that, different ways, especially on the farm level. We've seen and that's a pretty good use of water. I mean, pretty large use of water. So savings on farm are really adding up. And we're also seeing a lot of different groundwater usage where we haven't seen that before. I'm not sure how sustainable groundwater use is. It used to be, you can count on these big storms to replenish the aquifers, and we're seeing less of those. Now we're seeing groundwater management plans, funding those. The Groundwater Sustainability Act that we have in California, trying to partner with different agencies and different users to come up with a base level on an aquifer and trying to reduce use.
So for NRCS, we have CSP Conservation Innovation Grants. We have a lot of opportunities that look to fund novel ideas or innovation to incorporate into our toolbox to try to help with climate change. Honestly, I think drought itself is going to be the biggest catalyst for innovation. With the ranching and farming population getting older and older every year, and we're starting to see turnover of properties, it's not necessarily just dollars that people are looking for. We kind of like go through the layers. Our folks are really looking for those technical experts who understand the dynamics of what's really going on and can give them that technical information that will make those financial dollars really be impactful, right? It's not about throwing money at this. It's really about helping people understand on their property what's going on and what they can do, and then having that greater watershed impact that will benefit everyone overall. So I hope I answered that well enough for you. I think the drought itself is going to, there's a quote out there that says desperation or something like that is the key driver of innovation. And I think the drought is going to force us to find new ways to grow different things, appreciate things that we probably hadn't before. And NRCS will be right there to assist as that change happens.
Thank you, Ray, for those closing words of wisdom. Yeah, I think that that adversity and drought being the way it is, that it'll spark some innovation. I would agree with you on that one. Okay, well, thank you to all of our speakers. I'll give you a little round of applause. Thank you so much. And now we're going to go to our break. But before we go to break, I would like to remind everybody that since UNR Extension is a host of this meeting, we would like to better understand who is participating today. And if you would please fill out the optional anonymous 3-question poll in the chat, that would be great. And so now at this time, let's take our 15-minute break, and we will come back at, I think, let's see, 10:26, and we'll get started with our next round of 3 speakers. Thank you, everyone. See you after break. Okay, welcome back from break, everyone. Now let's go ahead and jump right back into the second half of our workshop. And next on the agenda, we have John Powderly as our next speaker. John Powderly is the Grants and Planning Outreach Specialist for FEMA Region 9. He is focused on providing information and assistance to communities regarding FEMA's hazard mitigation assistance grants in order to enable improving resilience to natural hazards. In his spare time, he looks to the sky anxiously, hoping to see dark gray clouds. And John, if you would like to share your screen. Perfect, it's coming online. Looks great.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bunny. And thank you all for having me today. I'm John Powderly with FEMA Region 9. As the title says, Grants and Planning Outreach Specialist for FEMA Region 9. Let's see if, there you go. Okay, first off, purpose of my presentation is to tell y'all what funding sources that we have available at FEMA Region 9. There's a whole bunch of funding sources available, but relative to this group, I think only a couple are very prominent. Under the Hazard Mitigation Assistance section, there's BRIC, Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities, and HMGP, Hazard Mitigation Grant Program. And there's a lot of crossover between these two, but there are some key differences. First off, BRIC is nationwide and a competitive program. States are competing against each other. It replaced the pre-disaster mitigation program, and it so far has been annual. The cycle starts with the notice of funding opportunity. That has been coming out in August, and the application window has been opening at the end of September for the past 2 years. BRIC is only 2 years old, but again, it replaces PDM. PDM is, I think, a couple decades old. And also, applicants must have had a declared disaster within 7 years to be eligible. But because of COVID, the entire nation and all territories of the United States are now eligible until at least 2026. So for right now, that you don't have to worry about eligibility due to a declared disaster. Now that's BRIC. HMGP is a little bit different. It's only a statewide program. There's no competition between states. That's because the money from HMGP comes from the disaster. Say, for example, the fires that have been happening in California, and I believe there have been a fire or two in Nevada. When that's a declared disaster, part of the money for that declared disaster gets taken out and put into an HMGP pot. But California gets their money, Nevada gets their money, Arizona gets their money, and there's no competition between states. That money is just the state's money. Within the state, there may be some competition. Perhaps Janelle will be talking more about that, but not state to state. And again, that's event driven. If there's no declared disaster, there's no pot of money. So with these two pots of money, there's currently a pretty big amount of money waiting for mitigation projects. What would we be looking at for drought? Well, before I go any farther, I want to make sure to point out these definitions, because these definitions, when you're applying for FEMA funds for drought, it really helps us out a lot if you focus on these words. Yes, there's a lot of common knowledge about drought, but using these particular words will really help us out. Drought, a deficiency in precipitation over an extended period, resulting in a water shortage causing adverse impacts on vegetation, animals, and/or people. Mitigation, activities that cause a long-term sustained reduction of the impact of disasters. And then drought mitigation, activities that cause a long-term sustained reduction of the adverse impacts caused by that extended deficiency in precipitation. So that's what we're looking at. And if when we hopefully see all of your applications, those are the things that will help us out. Using those words will very much help us out. Planning related activities. Now, I would like to say that I was exceptionally well prepared for this, but I'm not. I'm also going to be, I choose to be honest over try to have a facade. This was a placeholder slide that I put in last night. This is accurate. Planning related activities involve adding or updating sections of the current mitigation plan, integrating that mitigation plan into other planning efforts, building the knowledge within your community, within your constituency, and also evaluating and increasing standards. But I have some specific thoughts in mind that I hope will be helpful to y'all, and I'm just going to read those off now. They didn't make them into the slide. First off, what do you know about the water in your system? What mapping do you have? What sensors do you have? How accurate is that? And how timely is that? Real-time monitoring of water conditions can be helpful when trying to manage a drought and therefore increasing the resiliency of your agency to drought. That's a possible planning related activity. How much water might you save by metering all connections? If all your connections aren't metered, could you save a substantial amount of water, or at least increase the knowledge of your use by metering all connections? That's a possible. Exploring that, and maybe not connecting the meters, but exploring how much you could improve your operations by metering all connections. That's a planning related activity. What would the impact of new water efficiency standards for development be? That's a possible planning related activity. What land use standards or landscape ordinances are right for your community that would reduce the water use? That's a possible activity. Even, do you want to formalize a water sharing drought response agreement between multiple agencies? That could be the development of that water sharing agreement, could be a planning related activity. Planning related activities can can help with all of these questions. And then projects. Now I apologize, I think I may have jumped a little bit ahead of myself. Two broad categories of efforts for HMGP and BRIC grants are planning related activities and actual construction projects. We just talked about planning related activities. Now, construction projects specifically regarding drought. One project, aquifer storage and recovery, taking the water when it's abundant, storing it in subwater aquifers. Groundwater recharge. Retrofit water systems, upgrading the existing water delivery systems to eliminate breaks and leaks. Improving older systems to make them more efficient and saving water through that way. That's one of the best ways to increase our water supply, is to save the water that we already have. And then floodwater diversion and storage. Now this is a 2-for-1, and that's why it's separate from aquifer storage and recovery. It tends to go to aquifer storage and recovery, but by using floodwater diversion, you get the benefits from mitigating flood damage and the benefits for increasing your water supply. As you may know, for all projects that FEMA grants for projects, a benefit cost analysis is required. With floodwater diversion and storage, you get double the benefits, which can increase your benefit cost ratio, making your project more attractive. Some project considerations, and these are primarily for they're for all projects, but primarily for those larger construction projects. Technical, how exactly will the project mitigate drought impacts? How much water is going to be provided? Are the water rights secure? That's very big everywhere, especially in Nevada. How well is the aquifer understood? If we have a groundwater recharge basin at location X, is it actually recharging the aquifer for that community, or is some of it or all of it seeping out to this other aquifer to the benefit of someone else? Want to make sure we have a good understanding of that aquifer. The environmental impacts, all federal agencies are required to consider impacts of their programs. So that means that your grant action will be subject to review under the National Environmental Policy Act. That's your environmental impact statements if it's a large enough program, mostly environmental assessments, but there's still a lot of data regarding the project that will be necessary. We will need you to provide that data so that we can perform the adequate analysis of the impacts that is required. And then schedule. FEMA grants are generally 36-month period of performance. We can extend that out, but we try to hold that extension, that 12-month extension very closely. So we go with, hey, we want you to do this within 36 months. And especially because when we're doing these projects, all sorts of things they just pop up. It just happens that things go wrong. It's the nature of civil works projects. So if your project looks like it's going to go more than 36 months, or especially if your design and environmental data is not yet acquired, consider an advance assistance. That's a project where we see where you're going, we grant you the money to further develop the project, and then the construction of the project happens with a subsequent grant. That allows for a longer period of performance. Each grant would get a 36-month period of performance. Now, application components and eligibility. Application components, scope, schedule, budget, the standard components for any FEMA mitigation grant application. Your benefit cost analysis, water supply resiliency, and other issues. Note that for planning related activities, a benefit cost analysis is not needed. And as was mentioned on the previous slide, the environmental and technical data. Now, some additional information I want to put in there regarding eligibility. You need to be a qualifying agency. So that would be a city, a county, a community services district, a water district, or a similar agency. You need to have a current hazard mitigation plan, and the drought needs should be addressed in that hazard mitigation plan. You need to explain the project thoroughly. What is the specific problem that will be solved or at least alleviated? How will the activity solve or alleviate the problem? What are the specific deliverables that will come from the activity, that will come from the project? What are the milestones leading up to those deliverables? And most importantly, how will the activity improve your agencies and Nevada's resilience to drought? How will it reduce the impact of that extended water deficiency on your agency and the state of Nevada? That concludes my presentation for right now. I'm happy to take any questions. And I get the idea, though, I'm going to be transitioning to Janelle Woodward, the State Hazard Mitigation Officer. And I look forward to taking your questions at the end of this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John, for an excellent presentation. And yes, in fact, we will be doing questions at the end of this round of 3 speakers. So if you could stick around and be available for questions. And yes, indeed, up next, we have Janelle Woodward. Ms. Woodward works at the Nevada Division of Emergency Management, and she has been there since 2013. First as a contractor, and then taking the position of the State Hazard Mitigation Officer in early 2016. She has a passion for helping Nevadans become more resilient through mitigation projects and grants. And I do not see you coming online, Janelle. Are you here?
I am here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, if you would like to take control and share your screen, I will hand the speaking baton to you.
Okay, can we see my slides?
I can see your slides and hear you. It looks great.
Great. It's it's always interesting because we can't tell when you're in the person talking what anybody else could see. So good morning, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to just tell you a little bit about some funding availability that we have through the mitigation program. And let me start here. We have, there we go. So currently we have 2 post-disaster programs, HMGP post-fire and HMGP as a result of the COVID declaration. So I'll just briefly step back and say the BRIC program ended in January. So we just submitted the end of January projects for that grant program. But that is a yearly program. And if you have desire to apply for a BRIC grant next year that usually opens the end of September, you can go into FEMA grants and start your application now and start working on all of that stuff to be able to get a little bit of a head start. And there's a vast number of activities you can do in putting that application together that count as pre-award costs that can be claimed and reimbursed at 75% if it gets awarded. So let's go now to the HMGP, or Hazard Mitigation Grant Program, is what that stands for, which doesn't really say anything. But the post-fire funding, we have approximately $2.3 million available. And these first go to the areas where a fire occurred that received an FMAG, or Fire Management Assistance Grant declaration from FEMA. And once they get that triggers some post-fire mitigation funding that can be used. As I said, the first priority are fire projects, but once they have spent the amount that they're going to spend, it can open up to any natural hazard there. And those applications are going to be due the end of May 2022 or earlier. We encourage everybody to submit as soon as they're able to. The second is HMGP from COVID. And in this program, we have approximately $13.5 million available for projects planning, advance assistance. And you may hear the different terms. Advance assistance is a term utilized in HMGP, or post-disaster grants. If you're talking about BRIC, they've changed the name to project scoping. So essentially that's seed money to help you develop that project. So if you knew, here's my hazard, I know what that is, but I'm not sure which of these couple different options would be the best one to go with. And that gives you time to figure that out, do some studies or engineering and do that. The HMGP from COVID is going to be submitted on a first come, first serve. So I would say that the idea is to get your application in as soon as possible. Don't wait on those. The deadline is the end of June, because we have to submit by August 5th to FEMA. But if we can submit along the way as we get these applications, that not only affects the amount of funding available, but it also allows those projects or planning activities to be funded in a faster time frame. And you know what, I always compare to the state of California, who has $500 million in HMGP from COVID, unlike our Nevada's $13.5 million. So that means a lot of applications from the California side. So we don't want to submit everything all at the same time and then have to wait in line as they do each one. This is what the front of the application looks like for HMGP. HMGP applications are a fillable Word document, and these are located on DEM's website under mitigation, recovery and mitigation. You scroll down to mitigation grant. I forget exactly how it was put on there, but they're resources. So mitigation grant resources. So you're going to click in the gray spot part and double click in there, and you can fill out information. If you don't know what it is, you could just reach out and ask or leave it blank. And the two things that are most important are the jurisdiction name and your project title. This would be for the planning grant. So there's two different, for a project that you know you want to do, or a planning sub-application. If you're doing an advance assistance, you want to use the project application, even though it comes through as a planning activity. So those are looked at the same. Project eligibility, the different places that you can go to is to definitely look at the hazard mitigation assistance guidance. That's from 2015. It's in the process of being updated, but not out yet. And then of course, there's the mitigation ideas booklet that is from January 2013. That also has not been updated, but there are a lot of great ideas in there. And then in the center, I just added some extra things that were added and made eligible by the Disaster Recovery Reform Act, or DRRA, listing, you know, as such as the project scope and building code activities, allowing for pre-award costs. So some of this maybe is a little bit of a or going over it again, sorry. Lots going on in here, so trying not to get distracted. But the cost estimate or budget, depending on what you're looking at, needs to be broken down for the cost of your mitigation activity, identifying your contractor's costs. You can get management costs, which are up to 5% of the federal portion of your project. And typically that's a 75-25 split. So a 25% match with 75% reimbursement from FEMA. You want to document your sources for your estimated costs so that they know that you're not just, you know, coming up with some arbitrary number off the top of your head. One of the biggest mistakes is lump summing. So that when I say that, I mean, you put in your budget one at 7,200 equals 7,200, but they want a little more clarity than that. So actually you could put that in your budget if in your budget narrative, you actually give that explanation and break that down. So that, like I said, is one of the biggest mistakes. And again, management costs, they're paid at 100% with no cost share and could be up to 5%. It must be included in your application in order to receive those management costs. So you want to be sure to look at the FEMA HMA guidance for what is allowable as a management cost. But like I said, that gets added into your budget. Your narrative, that's required with every application. And so it's gives you a summary, or gives them a summary of each budget category and lists out each item within that category. So here's where you're going to give your explanation if you put a lump sum inside of the budget portion of your application. And you want to explain really how those funds are going to be spent and the deliverable that's expected there. And so then I just end with questions, and I know those are going to be done at the end. And so that's just a little bit of a look at HMGP options that are available right now, currently. And if you have any questions in applying for those, please don't hesitate to reach out at your earliest convenience to me, and we can help you get started on that. And I'll pass that off then to Jason, I believe. Bunny, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Janelle. Thank you for the overview of the mitigation program for the state and the opportunities available. And next on the agenda, we have Jason. And Jason works for the Nevada Department of Environmental Protection. Jason B. Cooper is the manager for the state revolving funds and the state capital improvements grant program within the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. Jason is a certified government financial manager and has been working in the public sector of government accounting and finance for 14 years. Jason and his team of 4 dedicated individuals manage $555 million in assets for water, wastewater, and stormwater systems of any size. Welcome, Jason, and I will hand the presenter's baton to you if you would like to share your screen, please. Perfect, it's coming up. Excellent.
Perfect, thank you, Bunny. And you're able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine.
Wonderful, thank you very much, everyone. And I do want to take a quick moment to thank the Division of Water Resources, the University of Nevada, Reno, and the Desert Research Institute for putting this webinar together. Drought is very important in Nevada, very important topic for us, and it's important to have all the resources that are available out there as much as possible. There are a lot of programs, as you've heard today, with funding sources. I am one of them. I actually have a few that I manage here in the office, and I know it can get very confusing for folks to understand, what's available and what isn't. So this is just a wonderful opportunity to do this presentation today, and I'm grateful to be part of it. So I wanted to start off a little bit today, overview of what the state revolving funds are. There may be some folks on the call today that are not familiar with the SRF programs. And then I'm going to get into a little bit more about our funding, what we can fund, what entities can we fund. And yes, we also are receiving a lot of money from the bipartisan infrastructure law that has been mentioned before today. Kevin had mentioned some money that he's getting as well there, quite a bit. I'm also getting quite a bit as well. So we want to make sure we're doing what we can to get the word out about all of this funding opportunities for folks to be able to take advantage of. So to start off real quick, the state revolving loan funds have been around for quite some time. The Clean Water Program was put in place by an amendment to the Clean Water Act 32 years ago. The Drinking Water Program was updated by the Safe Drinking Water Act 22 years ago. So we've been around for a little while. The general concept is that we receive a federal grant from the government to capitalize the programs. The money comes into the state for us to loan the money out to eligible recipients. As that money gets repaid, we add to it future years grants. We also add to it bond proceeds, and we add to it treasurer's interest earnings, which then continues to grow the program. Eventually, these programs are designed to be self-sustaining and completely independent from federal grants in this case. But we do actually operate like a financial institution. The money that we have in our account is lent out to borrowers, eligible recipients, to be able to use, to be able to increase and improve their infrastructure and capital improvements. Part of our requirements also is to distribute the money at a below market interest rate. So that is really one of the biggest advantages of coming to the SRF program, is that eligible recipients can get a loan from our program at a lower rate than what they can get going out to the market on their own. As you can see on the screen here, we've actually awarded quite a bit of money over the years. We have a wide range of amounts of money that we have available. We've done very small loans to very large loans. We are not restricted to entity size. So we can fund a really small water system, and we can also fund the really large systems of our state. Same with our clean water program as well. So we're not jurisdictionally restricted or capacity size restricted in this case. Some of the money that we get from the federal government, we are required by the grant to distribute it as principal forgiveness. So because we're a loan program, we don't have the ability to grant money out, but there is a portion of the grant that we are required to distribute as principal forgiveness. So there is no repayment, basically. You will hear me talk a little bit more about that down the road. There are entities that have to qualify in order to receive those funds. Typically, those are reserved for the entities that are disadvantaged, considered disadvantaged, or underserved within our populations. So the entities that are eligible to receive funding from the state revolving funds are public water systems, whether or not they're publicly owned or privately owned, and nonprofit entities that are non-community based systems. That would also mean tax exempt. Tribal governments are also eligible for funding from our programs. In the clean water program, we are restricted to public municipalities that have jurisdiction over the disposal of sewage, industrial wastes, or other wastes, interstate agencies, and Native American tribes. So these are the eligible entities who are able to actually come forward and put an application in for funding. Now, please note at the bottom of my slide, I did put here that if I didn't call you out or mention you, I don't want to discourage you. I want to encourage you to still, maybe talk to us, give us a call, or even contact your local municipality to see if there's something that could be done, because we have actually sponsored pass-throughs before. Perhaps you are not an eligible entity in the clean water program because you're a mobile home park or an HOA, but you have a need and you're consolidating with a public municipality. It may be in that public municipality's benefit to consolidate you in. So then they would be willing to come forward and take the lead in this case. And we have funded those kind of projects as well. So don't be discouraged in that case. Talk to us, work with us. I will also say that we have worked in partnership with just about every agency that's on this call. We continue to work with USDA. We've even worked with the Bureau of Reclamation. We work with the Community Development Block Grant through the HUD funding. And most recently, we've started discussions with the Department of Emergency Management on ways of being able to partner fund projects. So, maybe your project is really large. You don't want to take all of it out in a loan or what have you. And there isn't enough grant money that's available at another entity. Maybe we need to work together and partner on that and see if there's a way that we can put together some kind of funding package that would help your project go farther. Because we know these are expensive projects in some cases. And we know that it's a burden to add costs to the ratepayers of the system. So if there's a way to perhaps leverage these funds between different programs, talk to us, reach out. We're happy to help in this case. So what kind of projects can the SRF program fund? Well, I've highlighted here on this screen a few of the projects that typically focus on drought or drought mitigation, I should say, in a way of trying to help keep things sustainable for a community long term. But we can fund a lot of different things. And there is even, I want to bring out into your attention on the clean water side, we do have the ability to even address non-point source issues, stormwater management. There is a system in Arizona that is reforesting a land because it's going to help prevent the erosion control and runoff. And so there's a whole bunch of things that these programs can do that will also help sustainability with drought mitigation, with just general rehabilitation. The drought issue could also be that you just need to replace your transmission lines because they're leaking. Maybe you've got a significant leak and you're losing water, and that's just really not good. It could also even be your meters. You don't have, your meters are 20, 30 years old, and you don't have them, they're not working properly anymore. So then you're also losing revenue because that's your cash register. Your cash register isn't adding things up right. So you need to be able to replace those things. Those are projects that we can fund. We can also do backup systems, redundancy for storage and source. There's backup power. So there's a lot of things that the state revolving funds can do as far as projects go. In addition to this, our grants also provide us funding that will allow us to do direct technical assistance to drinking water systems. And now, because of the Bill Act and the BIB Act, We do have set aside funding in clean water as well. Well, what does technical assistance mean? What does this mean? Well, if you're a water system and you don't know where your assets are located, this could be a critical issue, because maybe it's a dead end that's leaking and you don't have any idea why you got a leak in your system. Maybe you need to have your system mapped. That is something that we can do for you through this program. And get this, it's free of charge to the user, to the water system. We pay for nonprofits to go out to your system and assist you for free to be able to do this kind of work. So we can assist with water conservation plans. We can help you do a cost of service analysis. We can help do board member training to help them understand why conservation and drought mitigation and proper rate setting is important in this case for best management practices within water systems. Our clean water program is, with the technical assistance, is still new. We're still waiting for some guidance, mostly from EPA on that, to see how broad those categories can be. Our general thinking today is that it's going to be similar to the drinking water side, but focused on clean water or wastewater systems in this case. If you have any need within your areas, or you know of a system that has a need, I've put our general email address in here. This is where you're going to want to send requests to, so you'll be able to do that. This email address is also repeated at the end of the slide presentation today. So a little bit about the infrastructure bill that was just passed. This is a historic investment in water for everybody involved in the water industry. The state revolving funds is getting a very large chunk of this money to be able to distribute throughout the state for various purposes. Some of these grants are target specific to certain projects, like lead service line replacements or emerging contaminants. On my next slide, I'm going to show you a little bit more of the breakout of what it looks like for Nevada's state revolving fund programs. But it's basically the authority that was awarded in the infrastructure bill is in addition to my normal annual appropriation. So the state revolving funds right now in Nevada is estimated to receive about $405 million over 5 years. Just to kind of give you some kind of magnitude of what that is, the program since inception have received $500 million over the 33 years in clean water that they've been in existence. So we're getting almost 80% of our money in 5 years. It's a massive amount of money. But the one thing to emphasize with that is that I don't just get it handed to me. I have to justify it to the Environmental Protection Agency in order to apply for it through a grant. So I need to know if there are projects in Nevada that need these funds, so I can apply for the grants, or we could lose those funds to another state because they do get reallocated to other states if we do not apply. Just today, I opened up our priority lists. In order to get funding from the program, you do need to be on our priority lists. And if you're on our listserv notifications, those notifications had gone out. We are also planning on sending out flyers to all water operators and wastewater operators as soon as we can, to make sure that we're spreading the word about the opening of these priority lists. We need to have pre-applications submitted to us by May 11th. And if there is anyone on the call who wants to know more information about that, please reach out to me. Again, the last slide of this presentation will have my contacts. It will also have the website where you can sign up directly with our notification. So it's important that systems understand that there is a call to action. We do need systems to let us know what their needs are, or we stand the risk of losing these funds. And we don't want that. We want to do what we can to try and get the word out there about the funding that's available in the state. A lot of this money that's coming through the infrastructure bill is really designed to be focused on specific kinds of projects, such as those in disadvantaged communities or underserved communities. It's designed to address emerging contaminants and forever chemicals. It's also designed to address lead service lines. There is a need, though, to also utilize these funds for climate change and drought mitigation. And I bring that up because, not just the money that we're getting from the infrastructure bill, but I've already got a lot of money in the state because of the revolving nature of our program that can easily help a lot of these types of projects that are needed. And we even have the ability to leverage our program for more money as well beyond what I'm going to show you next on the next slide. So without further ado, the next slide, drinking water. The drinking water SRF funding here from the bipartisan infrastructure law is pretty extensive. I've got a lot of information on this slide, but I'd like to draw your attention to the blue field over on the right. We're currently estimating that we have the potential of receiving $78.1 million in the first year alone. So I have until September of 2023 to receive these funds, or I could be losing them to another state. Out of the $78.1 million that we've got potentially coming, I can give over half of it away as principal forgiveness. So even though we're a loan program, there's quite a bit of money that could be potentially available here for our water and wastewater system, our drinking water systems in this case, over the next, just this year. This is the same number 5 years in a row. So this is just year one. We also have, as you can see, a lot of money available for technical assistance, but we also need to know what the need is. I don't need to take any, but I can take quite a bit of it too for technical assistance to be able to use to provide that direct assistance to a water system as they need it without charging the water system for that work. Right now, today, sitting in my account, I have enough money though to be able to award a $100 million loan without sneezing. And that's even before we get any of this funds. So we have quite a bit of money here in resources available to help and assist with systems. And again, I want to reemphasize any size system, every system in Nevada is important to us, not just the big guys. We are also concerned about helping the systems that only have 25 people. We're concerned about helping the people that have 1,000. We're concerned about helping people that are in every part of the state. So we definitely want to make sure that that message is heard and that we are partnering with all of our other funding agencies that are on the call today as well. Over the 5-year period of time, the drinking water program is expected to receive approximately $344.9 million. Now in the clean water program, which is again, stormwater, wastewater, non-point source, this is for anything on the environmental protection collection side and treatment. This could be used for reuse programs. This is could be even direct potable reuse if we need to go there, which I know there's quite a few jurisdictions that are starting to go that direction as well, especially in drought-stricken areas. The first year alone, we're expecting to get 17.1 million. I'll be able to give 5.1 million of that away as principal forgiveness. We also have, again, technical assistance here. It doesn't look like it's a lot of money, $343,500, but that could still go a long way. It depends on what EPA comes back with on what we're able to use for funding in that source. But there's a lot of things that we can do in technical assistance that money would still be beneficial for. And again, that's only the first year. It's going to continue for the next 5 years in a row. Today in the bank, right now, I could do a loan of $50 million or more. And the reason why it's half that of drinking water is because I actually have been doing some big projects lately in clean water that has been benefiting a lot of the northern parts of the state here. And a lot of it is to also assist with reclamation in reuse facilities. So we're very excited to be part of those projects. We want to continue being part of those projects as we move forward with all of this funding. Over the next 5 years, the bill is planning on providing Nevada $60.3 million. Again, as long as we're able to justify the need for those through project submissions. So what are we asking for right now? As I mentioned before, we're asking for a call to action. So for utilities that are eligible to receive funding, please talk to your citizens, please talk to your governing boards, look at your capital improvement plans. What is your need? What have you been not able to address for the longest time because there hasn't been funding available, hasn't been a priority? We need to find out what those projects are. We need to get them on our list. We need to start talking with you and your engineers to see if we can get those projects moving forward with you with the special funding, with all these special terms, principal forgiveness money that we've got coming. We should evaluate the readiness to proceed. And the Office of Financial Assistance, which is where I work, we govern the state revolving funds. we've just rolled out a new electronic computer program called NIFS. It's the Nevada Infrastructure Financial System. We are accepting pre-applications through that system. The link to sign up to the NIFS program is out on our website. I have also sent out notices on our listserv page about the link and how to sign up for that. So entities and recipients should be able to access that system now and be able to submit pre-applications through the NIFS program. If you are already on our priority lists today, we will need you to fill out a new pre-application in the NIFS system. Because it's electronic now, we're converting everything over. It's a simple 4-screen page. If you've got it in Word, you can cut and paste, but we do need to get those into the new NIFS system moving forward, so then the new priority lists are developed in the NIFS system. For NDAP, one thing we're going to be doing is creating listening sessions. I've already done one listening session on the bill funding, and that recording is posted on our main page that you'll see on the final slide. So you can go out there and watch that presentation that I did. As I learn more from EPA on what I can use these funds for, I will be doing more listening sessions and sharing that information as quickly as I possibly can. We are doing our project checklists. We actually have just introduced on our website a start to finish checklist for both the Clean Water Program and the Drinking Water Program. These programs are very complicated. I did not spend a lot of time in today's presentation going through all of our requirements and regulations because there are a lot. But the checklists are designed to help digest that better, and we'll meet with you when it comes time to do those sort of things. I just wanted to make sure I was getting the word out today about the money that's available, the time sensitivity of getting things to us as quickly as possible so we can make sure we don't lose any money to another state. And that was my focus for today. This is the final slide. As I mentioned, I've got my contact information on here. I have a link to our website where you're able to go and find a whole bunch of resources, including how to sign up for our listserv. So you're able to get ongoing notices about anything that's going on with this money. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and I'm happy to be available for answering anything at that time. And at this time, I'll turn it back over to Bunny.
Thank you, Jason. That was an excellent and very informative presentation. Lots going on, lots and lots going on. So this is all very timely. So I want to just thank the speakers for sharing all the information about their programs that they did today. And at this time, if there are any questions, if you have any questions, put that in the chat, please. And I see that we do have one, and I think this is targeted probably more for Janelle, but it's a question asking from Nicole: has Nevada, in Nevada, have any drought-related projects been funded with hazard mitigation grant program funds to date?
I think that can be a little bit complicated if you think of what is a drought project versus what is maybe a flood project or something like that. I think that we have some projects that could be counted as that, but I will tell you a more direct answer to that question would be that Bunny and I actually are working currently to do an amendment to our state hazard mitigation plan for the drought section that would allow us to apply for those grants. So any agency who wants to be able to apply under the drought, umbrella, and we really encourage that. I did neglect to mention that that is one of our priorities here at DEM, is to fund some drought projects. So hopefully some people are going to come up with some good projects that we can do, and Bunny and I will be, maybe next week when we're together, we can set aside some time to finish that and get it in so that any applications coming in can be funded under that.
Absolutely, Janelle. It is in progress. So I was planning on catching up with you next week. Thank you for that response. I have another question for Jason from Will. What do some of those large projects in Northern Nevada that you mentioned look like?
Thank you, Will, for the question. So we have recently funded about $150 million worth of projects here in Northern Nevada, just in 4 entities. One is up at the lake, Douglas County Lake Tahoe Sewer Authority. We've also funded the city of Reno. We've done Washoe County, and we've done Lyon County. And a lot of them are working on the expansion of their wastewater treatment facilities. That includes the reclamation parts of it, to even advance the water quality to A+ in some cases. There is also other discussions that we are involved with the city of Reno, Washoe County, Tumwa, to be able to do a big project as far as reclaimed water goes off of the Reno Stead wastewater treatment plant up north. That is looking at possibly long-term doing some kind of reuse for potable water. Because that's still in study, I believe, working with UNR on that case as well. So yeah, there's been some large projects that we've done. 55 million to Reno, 50 million to Washoe County. That one also rehabilitated their Huffaker Reservoir for the reclaimed water relining, and then they're also putting in a Pleasant Valley Interceptor along with the lift station. And then the projects up at the Douglas County Lake Tahoe Sewer Authority are also to expand the ability for treatment.
Thank you, Jason.
Mhm.
Lots of great projects going on. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in chat. Does anybody else have questions for our speakers? Okay, I have a question. Applying for these programs can be time consuming. Are there any supports for communities to apply for these programs, particularly rural and tribal communities? If anybody would like to speak to that.
I'll go ahead and go on that one first. So from the SRF perspective, I do agree, Tamara, that there can be a hurdle with applying for these funds. In some cases, there's some time delays that are out of our control as well, like the priority lists. There's a lot of work in opening them up. We have to do public workshops. We have to get the drinking water one approved by the Board for Financing Water Projects. So there's a whole bunch of steps that are involved with that. One thing that I've been trying to do, though, with our programs is to work in tandem with the interested parties of the system to see where everybody is at and to try and communicate as early as possible what all the requirements will be, so it doesn't slow the project down the road. Some of the biggest hurdles that we've seen is forgetting to do easements, or forgetting to do the environmental review, or running into challenges with either one of them. And then also even doing your public participation. So we try to sit down with you early. We try to go through the processes. I have also been trying to expand my team because of all of the funding that we've got coming forward. I have been given permission to bring on three additional temporary people to be able to help me. So in that case, our hope is to be able to do more project site visits and direct outreach. In that case, to be able to provide that. We're also hoping that the checklist, the start to finish, will also be a good user guide in this case as well. I will say that we can move pretty fast as long as everything is lined up. And again, there's a big footnote against all of that, because the environmental review, the project specific information and everything there really does create the hurdles in some cases about when we can get something moving and when we can't. But we do try to move things as timely as we can, but we try to work with the community so you're fully aware of what the needs are.
Thank you, Jason. Did any of the speakers want to jump in? And I see that Kevin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer that question about proposals, especially on the tribal end. We do recognize that the Water Smart programs, those application processes are really tedious, and I'm here to help you get through that process. But on our tribal specific grants, we've made the processes about as easy as we can. We have sample proposal format. It's only a couple pages long. It's basically tell us your story, tell us your problem, how you want to solve it, show us a budget, and then give us a budget narrative. 2-3 pages tops. So it really helps the smaller tribes compete a little bit better because everyone's kind of on the same playing field. Those water smart grants, most of those big districts that tribes are competing against are professionally written. So those are really challenging to compete against, but we're trying to do everything we can to work with the tribes. And I'm available to help on any of these proposals. In fact, I'd be even willing to help some of the tribes work on proposals for other agencies if asked. And then if there's a need out there in Nevada, Indian country, I can come and do maybe a proposal writing workshop with some of the other agencies and help people with that proposal writing process.
Hey, Kevin, and I do had your do you want to speak to that?
Would that be me, Bunny? I think your audio went in and out. Am I next?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, John, you next.
Got it. Thank you. Yes, there's a couple different ways that FEMA, the programs have been evolving. First, in the more standard way of the cost share, the standard cost share for projects is 75% federal, 25% non-federal. For in general sense, for economically disadvantaged communities, I believe it's rural, economically disadvantaged communities as well, and tribal. If you meet certain criteria, you can get your cost share reduced from 25% non-federal to 10% non-federal. In a more broad sense, we certainly want to see infrastructure projects constructed, infrastructure projects that mitigate risk from natural hazards constructed. We also want to see standards implemented that allow communities to develop in a more resilient fashion. But there's been a realization at FEMA that these projects don't just they don't just pop out of nowhere. There's a whole bunch of thinking, coordination with the community, analysis and design, and analysis of the design in terms of a feasibility study. Hey, here are 6 options. Which one is going to work better for the community? And that's a large amount of, that is the purpose really of the planning related activities grants and the advanced assistance projects and project scoping projects, is to bridge that gap between, hey, here's an idea that might mitigate natural hazards risk. That's where one side of the gap is. The other side is having a project ready for construction or a project ready for implementation. Those planning related activities grants and advanced assistance grants and project scoping grants are to help communities bridge that gap. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Janelle, I believe you had your hand up next.
I just wanted to give a quick statement that, you know, I'm here to help anybody who needs any help at all. So they just need to reach out and we can provide that. I also am in the process of expanding my team. I do usually hold some just short webinar meetings that are helpful for putting together these applications as well, but reach out will help.
Thanks, Janelle. And Ray, I did see that you had your hand up. Did you still want to speak to this question or?
Yeah, so NRCS, we're definitely willing and able to assist. We typically at our field offices do the application process one-on-one with the producer. But even if you're applying for some of the PL 566 programs, the PIFR process is done in such a way to make sure that we get it right. And so we really just need you to vocalize what the need is, and then we can work with you from there. I mean, there is some writing with it, but we definitely are assistive in that process. So across the board, NRCS will definitely work with you.
Thank you, Ray. Okay, I do see that I have another follow-up question, and it's, let's see, I think it's related to Jason's question about large projects in Northern Nevada that Jason had mentioned, but going off Jason's question, what about small projects or tribal related? I believe the question is examples of what's going on in the state related to those.
Yes, thank you very much. Happy to share a little bit about that. So we have actually, we are currently funding the Fallon Paiute Shoshone tribe on the clean water side in working with their lagoons. We are partnering with IHS on that project as well. We have also done quite a few projects across the state. I've listed a few in my chat to Safia. We've got some projects up to McDermott. We've got a project in Gerlach, over in Baker, Nevada, Beatty. We're doing one in Grass Valley up in Humboldt County. We've got Lovelock area and Lovelock Meadows water system. Mount Rose Bowl off of the Mount Rose Highway up here. There's Silver Knolls that's up in the North Valleys. Rourke Estates is down in Clark County. We've also funded quite a few mobile home parks. There's even one that we're currently doing, Crystal Trailer Park in Verdi, where we're consolidating them into Tumwa so they can get off of the point of use for arsenic. So we've done a bunch of, we've got over 50 projects that we're currently working on right now. That includes the large ones, but most of our projects are actually for small rural locations.
Thank you, Jason. Also, Tamara put in the chat, given the amount of funding coming, would it be feasible to do pre-grants that would help communities prepare for applying? And I do believe some of you already spoke to this, but were there any follow-up on that? Any additional comments?
I'll take a moment on that one. So from the SRF program, we don't have any funding available to offer to help you apply or do any of that. It would be more with your engineers work and that sort of stuff with getting the project set up and ready to go. We can fund preliminary engineering reports and environmental reviews that are done in advance of a project. So you have a need, but you don't know where to start or what the technically feasible options are for the project. We can fund those special in its own special type of funding separate from the project and be able to do that, to be able to help with that and get them set up for the project. And we are also able to reimburse for any pre-planning costs once the loan closes. So if you're incurring those expenses, you'll be able to get reimbursement for them as long as it's just for design, engineering, and planning. Once the construction starts, though, we have to be under a contract. So that's kind of when the break point is there.
Thank you, Jason.
I can follow up on that as well. Reclamation doesn't have any pre-award funding available to help with the proposals as a form of a grant to a recipient. But we do have technical service in-house that we can sometimes help with for preliminary designs, help with maybe a budget, do a government cost estimate on things. So there are some of those avenues that we can do in-house, but as far as this grant awards before a project, we don't do that. But sometimes once a grant is obligated, we do award pre-award costs if they're approved, but generally those pre-award costs are for costs that are for engineering that they've gone outside of reclamation to get, but not necessarily dollars to pay consultants to write reports or to reimburse salaries of a tribal member to write a report.
Thank you, Kevin. Okay, well, I do believe that's all we have time for today. I want to again thank all of our presenters for participating today and sharing this very important information about the programs and the funding that's available through those programs. And again, we will be sharing links to all the presenter slides and a follow-up email. And this workshop was recorded, and there will also be a link available to that. So that brings us to the end of today's workshop. And I just want to thank all of you for your time and for the excellent discussion we've had today. I want to thank you. I want to send a big thank you to all of you who came to all three workshops. And as with the other workshops, today's insights will be used to identify opportunities for collaboration going forward and to address the needs for drought preparedness, planning, mitigation, and response. And I'd also like to thank the planning team that helped made this possible, the staff from NDWR, the State Climate Office, DRI, and CNAP. And with that, thank you for attending and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.